All right, hello and welcome. We are learning today in 5.4. We are solving compound inequalities, and this is very similar to what we've been doing before. We're adding this little thing bit right here where we talk about a compound inequality instead. So this falls under this particular Common Core standard right here, where we're solving linear equations and inequalities with one variable. Overall, these are the three big things that we need to take away from this particular lesson. First of all, you need to be able to recognize and graph what a compound inequality is. You will then need to be able to solve a compound inequality. You're also going to need to be able to differentiate, meaning tell the difference between a compound inequality that is an and statement and an or statement. And again, we will be discussing what those things mean in the lesson as we come up here. So let's get started. So a compound inequality is it's an inequality that consists of two different inequalities that we are combining into one, and they are joined by an and statement or an or statement. Now, and statements will say something like less than 3, and greater than -2. Notice that we're setting two different conditions for this number. It needs to be a number that is less than 3, but it also needs to be a number that is greater than -2. And so we have a way of writing this that is a single line, and it looks something like that. So here, this compound inequality shows that x is a number that's bigger than -2 because it's this inequality sign right here is eating the x, so it's bigger than -2. But then this inequality over here, x is smaller than 3. So this means that it's less than 3 and greater than -2. Notice that it is two separate inequalities. It is that inequality, x is less than 3, and it is that inequality, -2 is less than x. Notice that it goes from low to high. Low numbers are always on the left, high numbers are always on the right. So this is what a compound inequality looks like. We're making an interval. We're saying, what is this between? It's between -2 and 3. These graphs will look something like this. So if this is 0, -2, and 3, we need to use the graph to represent all of the numbers between -2 and 3. Well, that's all of this stuff in between. But it's not -2 or 3, because notice these are less than, not greater than, or less than, not equal to. So there's open circles on 2 and 3. And since we're representing all numbers in between, we connect the dots like so. So this is a graph that represents -2 is less than x is less than 3. X is the number between -2 and 3. Now, an or statement, on the other hand, will use the word or. So we could say greater than 3. Notice I'm using greater than instead of less than. Or less than -2. And notice that this is, again, it's two different inequalities. We have one thing that's saying x is greater than 3. And we have another thing here saying that x is less than -2. And I want you to notice that we're not talking about the numbers in between -2 and 3 anymore. We're talking about ones that are bigger than 3 and smaller than -2. So notice that with an or statement, I've written it as two inequalities. With an and statement, we have this compound thing that we put together. With an or statement, we write the two separate inequalities. And our graph, instead of being a line that connects them in the middle, We have an open circle on 3. And then this is everything bigger, so that's going that direction. And then we have an open circle on -2, and it's going that direction because it's less than. So notice that these ones are like connecting in the middle for the and statement. And in the or statement, they're going in opposite directions. So that's the difference between an and an or statement. These are compound inequalities. We are creating a single inequality by taking two separate ones and putting them together. So let's do an example of just turning things from words to graphs. So here we have all real numbers that are greater than -2 and less than 3. That's the one that I already did. I randomly chose those numbers too. So greater than -2, x is greater than -2, x is less than 3. Notice that it's talking about the numbers in between, and we have that big old word right there, and. So we have -2, +3, open circles with a connection bar in between. And our inequality is -2 is less than x is less than 3. Again, and statements are going to have this compound inequality set up. What about the second example, which thankfully I did not use these random numbers when I did that one. All real numbers that are less than 0 or greater than or equal to 2. So x is less than 0 or x is greater than or equal to 2. Notice this is an or statement, so we're going to have it as two separate inequalities. We don't combine them. And our graph on this will then be that we're going to have 0 and 2. We have an open circle on 0 because it's a less than symbol with no equal to, and it's going to be smaller. And then we've got a x is greater than or equal to, so that's a closed circle, and that's going to be moving to the right. Okay, that's the end of this video. Go ahead and back to your Canvas lesson where you have 2 examples to do on your own, and then start your next video that will have the solutions for those.